And, Your Honor, I have no further questions of the witnesses at this point.
You're excused. Can I leave?
Who's this guy? You're going to wish you could leave.
Cross, Mr. N.
Thank you, Your Honor. Officer Novak, you responded to the scene of a motor vehicle accident, correct?
Yes, sir.
At that point, when you arrived there, you observed my client, correct?
Yes, sir.
And in fact, you had not observed my client operating his motor vehicle, correct?
That's correct.
You didn't observe him driving carelessly, going over the center line, swerving, or engaging in any other kind of aberrational driving, correct?
Yes, sir.
You observed my client standing outside his vehicle. He was on his cell phone?
Yes, sir.
Your police report reflects that?
I don't have my police report in front of me.
Well, if I were to suggest to you that it does in fact indicate that you saw my client on his cell phone and that you told him to end his call, would that refresh your recollection?
Yes, sir.
Is it your recollection that my client seemed to understand your instruction that he should terminate his, I'm going to direct you now to S2, about 4 lines down on S2 under the arrival at the scene. Does it indicate that my client was standing outside his vehicle on his cell phone?
Yes, sir.
And you, in fact, told him to end his call so you could continue your investigation, correct?
That is correct.
Did my client seemingly understand your instruction?
Yes, sir.
Did he politely and cooperatively comply with your instruction?
Yes, sir.
Does your report indicate that my client was having any difficulty standing while he was outside his vehicle on the cell phone?
No, sir.
Did you make any observations of the front end of his car?
Yes, sir.
How would you describe the damage to the front end of his car?
I was rather heavy front end damage.
Would that be, in your professional experience, the result of a rather substantial motor vehicle accident?
Yes, sir.
Now, did you ask my client for his license, registration, and insurance card?
I did it. I didn't at that time.
Did you ask him later?
Yes, sir.
And if my client had difficulty producing those documents for you, you would have provided that in your report, correct?
Yes, sir.
Does your report indicate that he had any difficulties in providing you with his license, registration, and insurance card?
May I look over my reports?
Please.
No, sir.
Now, officer, you observed my client, and you asked my client if he'd been consuming alcoholic beverages, and he told you that he'd consumed 6 beers, correct?
Yes, sir.
You did not ask my client over what period of time he had consumed those beers, correct?
No, sir.
And in point of fact, you are aware of the fact that it's not illegal for people in the state of New Jersey to drink and drive, correct?
In moderation.
So you're moderately aware of it?
No, sir.
In point of fact, the only prohibition in our statute is that individuals not drink to excess, that is, drink to the point of intoxication and drive. Isn't that true?
That is correct.
So the odor of alcohol on his breath and his admission of 6 beers did not inform you as to whether he was intoxicated, correct?
That's correct.
Now, you also asked my client to perform some field sobriety tests, correct?
That's correct.
And you are trained and certified in the administration of field sobriety tests, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you're certified by the National Association of the Chiefs of Police, correct?
I'm not sure if that's the organization that certifies me, sir.
Okay. Well, isn't it true that the National Association of Chiefs of Police is neither a state organization nor a recognized national organization for the administration and teaching of such tests? Isn't that true?
I wouldn't know that, sir.
Now, you asked my client to perform the horizontal gaze and nystagmus test?
Yes, sir.
Would it be fair to say that you gave him instructions which included that he should not move his head during the administration of this test, correct?
Yes, sir.
You've given this test probably hundreds of times in your career, correct?
I would say so.
And the majority of times, or at least a substantial minority of the times, even after giving that instruction, individuals move their heads, correct?
Yes, sir.
Did my client move his head after being instructed to do so?
May I look at my report?
Would you please? S2.
I didn't note any movement of head, sir.
And with the absence of that notation, given that moving the head and failing to follow instructions would be an indicia, a badge of intoxication, we can assume that that would have found its way into your report, correct?
Yes, sir.
So it's by its absence in your report, we can infer that that did not occur, correct?
Yes, sir.
Now, you asked them to conduct a second test, correct?
Yes, sir.
And this would be the one-leg stand?
Yes, sir.
Now, by this point, you had told my client that you suspected him of being under the influence of alcohol, and that's why you were asking him to perform these tests, correct?
Yes, before I did the HGN test, I told him I wanted to perform some tests because I suspected he might be under the influence.
You asked, when my client first attempted the one-leg stand test, you noticed that he put his foot down once after 4 seconds because he was swaying, correct?
Yes, sir.
However, you gave him that alone, stepping off and putting his foot down once, is not, under the scoring system for this test, a failure. Is that true?
Yes, sir.
And in fact, before on direct, you testified that you were asked questions as to whether you were satisfied or dissatisfied with my client's performance on these tests, correct?
Yes, sir.
In fact, these tests are tests which have been tested by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration for the detection of levels of alcohol in an individual that would make them unfit to operate a motor vehicle, correct?
Yes, sir.
And in fact, part of that testing procedure involved that the determination must be made after an objective scoring analysis, correct?
Yes, sir.
And that objective scoring analysis does not include whether you were satisfied or dissatisfied with his performance, correct?
That's correct, sir.
Now, on this test, you gave my client was able to pick his foot up after putting it down one time and continue with the test, correct?
Yes, sir.
You noted that my client was swaying and leaning, correct?
Yes, sir.
That is not a clue, an objective clue as to whether or not he's properly performing this test, correct?
No, sir.
Did you tell my client that it would be improper for him to sway or lean during the performance of this test?
No, sir.
Now, I ask you to look at your report, again, with respect to the second attempt on S2, the one-leg stand.
Yes, sir.
Did you note that after a while, my client began hoping?
I'm sure he started hoping that I was going to let him go.
And both hoping and praying under those circumstances would be appropriate, correct?
I think so.
Now, with respect to the third test, the walk and turn test, you gave him a number of instructions, correct?
Yes, sir.
One of the instructions was that he was to maintain that position prior to the beginning of the test, correct?
Yes, sir.
Does your report indicate that at any time that he stepped from that position in order to maintain his balance?
He started before I told him to. I don't know whether that was to maintain his balance.
Okay. He never stepped to the side while maintaining that position in order to keep from falling over. Is that true?
That's true.
Now, you told him to walk 9 steps up, 9 steps back. Is that true?
Yes, sir.
Did, in fact, he walk 9 steps up?
No, sir.
How many steps did he walk up?
I think it was 7.
Okay. Now, you went to the police academy and you were instructed in various phases of your duties as a police officer, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you were also instructed in report writing. Would that be true?
Yes, sir.
And at the academy, they told you that when you write a police report, that there's an obligation that it be truthful, correct?
Yes, sir.
That it be accurate?
Yes, sir.
And that it be complete, correct?
Yes, sir.
And obviously, by complete, we mean that all facts which are essential or important to the matter under investigation should be recorded in your report, correct?
Yes, sir.
Did you record anything in your report indicating that my client failed to walk the 9 steps up and 9 steps back as instructed?
No, sir.
From its absence, can we assume, therefore, that it was your observation that evening that he walked the correct number of steps?
No, sir. I have a recollection of that. I didn't put it in the report because I knew I could remember that.
Okay. Now, this offense occurred in April of 2010, correct?
Yes, sir.
And we are now in Hasbrouck Heights, New Jersey, in July, the end of July of 2011, almost a year and a half later, correct?
Yes, sir.
And it's your testimony that you can recall the events of that evening more accurately today than you could on the evening in question?
No, not more clearly, no.
Okay. So your recollection on the evening in question when you wrote your report and failed to note that he did not complete the correct number of steps was less accurate, or excuse me, more accurate than it is today?
More than likely, yes.
Okay. Now, one of the other things that you were looking for is whether my client was able to walk the line without stepping off to the side, correct?
Yes, sir.
That is, whether he was able to maintain his balance while being robbed of his bipedality, correct?
That's a very big word. I don't know what that means.
Okay. Robbed means to steal from.
This is really the way he tries a case, believe me.
Last thing I want to get into, Judge, is the facts. Would it be fair to say that my client was able to walk the number of steps that he walked both up and back without once having to step off to the side in order to maintain his balance, correct?
That's true.
He touched his heel to toe in each and every step as instructed?
He did.
You instructed him to keep his arms at his side, and he did?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Now, as a result of your observations, you felt that you had probable cause to arrest my client. Is that true?
Yes, sir.
And you understood that probable cause is different than proof beyond a reasonable doubt, correct?
Absolutely,
You
sir.
were not making any determination at that time whether he was intoxicated beyond a reasonable doubt, but merely by the standard of probable cause, correct?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Now, my client was transported by you to headquarters, and during the entire time in the police car, he acted calm and was clear-headed, correct?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Now, when you arrived at headquarters, you you instructed him that you were going to be giving him an Alcotest. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And you took him to a certain room where he was seated?
Yes, it's our standard Alcotest room.
Okay. Were there any other officers present in the room at that during the course of this testing procedure?
No, sir.
Were you the sole officer in headquarters?
Not in headquarters, but sole officer in that room.
Okay. During the entire testing period, no other officers entered or left that room, correct?
That's correct.
Now, during this testing procedure, certain factors were important in order that the test foundational requirements be properly met, correct?
Yes, sir.
You're familiar with the state police procedures for the proper administration of this test, correct?
Yes, sir.
You're also familiar with the fact that any deviation from those official procedures would invalidate the test results. Is that true?
That's what we've been taught.
Now, you said you indicated before that you observed my client for 20 minutes. Is that true?
Yes, sir.
And how long after that 20-minute observation period ended did you begin the testing process?
Within a minute or two afterwards.
Okay. Now, in order to perform the test on my client, you had to fill out a number of pieces of paperwork. Is that true?
That's true.
Where did you obtain them from?
From headquarters there. We keep most of them right there in the room.
But some of them are kept outside the room and you had to go fetch them?
Well, I grabbed the paperwork as I was leading him back into the Alcotest room.
Now, during the period of observation, by the way, were you ever trained as to what to look for during the period of observation?
Yes, sir.
Did you ever inspect the inside of my client's mouth cavity? That is, did you ask him to open his mouth? Did you check up on his upper gums and around his lower gums and under his tongue?
Well, I made him open his mouth, and I couldn't see anything from where I was sitting.
Now, did you, in fact, after the 20-minute observation period, did you, in fact, ask him to blow into the machine?
Yes, sir.
Did my client seemingly understand your instruction?
Yes, sir.
Now, could you please tell me how it is you told him to blow into the machine?
I told him to come over to the machine, take a deep breath, and then blow into the machine continually until I told him to stop.
Okay. Now, you're familiar with the case of Stay versus Chun, correct?
I've heard of it, yes, sir.
Okay. And you know that the state police procedures mandate us how the test should be administered, correct?
Yes, sir.
And one of the requirements of the state is that a certain phrase which is written be read to the client specifically, word for word and verbatim. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Is it your testimony that you simply paraphrased that instruction as you understood it and before asking him to blow into the machine?
I don't recall specifically in this case whether I paraphrased or I read from the paperwork we have there.
So would it be fair to say that as we sit here today, you don't have any recollection of having followed the procedural requirement that you read that statement as to the manner in which my client must blow into the Alcotest machine?
Yes, sir.